Well, the Dallas Cowboys' playoff chances are still alive, technically, but they're on life support to say the least. And it's safe to say at this point that they don't control their own destiny by any reach. They need a lot of help from one of two teams. So we will maybe look more at that later. But in short, it's getting late, as they say. So let's
Yeah.
unwrap this most recent game where they got beat just, let's say by a little. It was a one-score game to the Minnesota Vikings. It was obviously very disappointing. It's a bit
Yeah.
confusing when you look at the stats, at least from my perspective, and trying to put together is like, wait, how did you lose this game exactly?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then within that, like, what was the problem is an even harder question for me. So I will instead ask you kind of what happened here.
I'll admit I'm still recovering from this one. I think this should have been and was our game to lose, and we found a way to do just that. You know, things in the early part of the game looked pretty even back and forth. It just felt like we're one adjustment kind of away from, you know, really taking over the game and all of that. And then by the end of that first half, it didn't feel that way anymore. It felt like we may be in trouble because it looked our defense had already begun to look a lot like our defense from earlier in the year. And I think coming out of this, that will be a big talking point going forward is that why did our defense look like it regressed? Um, I think one of the things that they had some success with in the first half was they were running the ball fairly well in the first half. Aaron Jones had a couple of decent kind of runs. Jordan Mason got in on one, and the ball was moving on the ground and in the air. That was very effective. Shout out to Quinnen for getting an interception early in the game. This was pretty entertaining. But it just felt like, man, I don't know. It was nice to answer those things, but it did not feel like we were in control. So going into halftime, it was like, okay, where's the big adjustment that's going to come, that's going to make, in particular, fix the defense? And the answer was there isn't one. There won't be an adjustment to fix the defense. I will take that halfway back, which is that in the second half, I don't think they had much in the way of rushing yards. So we did stop their running game, which was fine. They could just Hail Mary the ball all over the field and catch it, and that I will give McCarthy a lot of praise here in the sense that, I mean, he only completed 15 passes. I don't want to overdo it here, but there were some passes that he threw that the only way they could catch them was very, very narrow window. And he threw that in there in a place where only they could get to it. Now, and again, one could argue that, Addison, Hawkins, and Jefferson are not the hardest targets to find on a field. But my hat's off to him on those. And then Naylor got behind everyone. No, it's Addison who got behind everyone for like a 58, 59-yard, long play. They just did enough to get it done. And I think that maybe the best single picture of this game, if you will, is the play where McCarthy fakes the ball. They do the fake rush up the middle at the goal line, and then he's walking by himself into the end zone on the other side with the ball. That's probably the greatest single picture of this game is him doing that, because it's kind of how the game felt, was that JJ McCarthy was able to steal this one away overall. There from a performance standpoint, not to completely monologue, George Pickens was a notable lack of participation, and that's not him as a player not participating so much as we threw the ball to him 6 times. He was able to catch 3, but he was not a huge part of what we were doing, and there was really no adjustment made to make him a bigger part. So I'm not exactly sure what to take away with that. The other big thing I noticed was Jake Ferguson, who is normally kind of like the pressure relief guy, notably only had two or three targets maybe and a couple catches. So there's just not a lot from the normal side of things that you would expect in this. I don't know. What did you see?
Well, some of it made some sense. Like you telling me that some of your primary pieces had trouble against their defense. It's like, okay, that
Yeah.
makes some sense. So you talk about Jake Ferguson. It's like, okay, maybe they saw him as a big problem, especially in the red zone. And to their credit, you had to go for field goals a lot, and we'll get to that in a minute. But they were able to shut down things like that. However, you did put up 400 yards on them, which probably hadn't happened that much. Javonte Williams looked good. CeeDee Lamb was just destroying people, at least from the 20 to the 20 kind of deal. Dak didn't have a turnover, so that one made sense to me. In some ways, if you're saying, okay, they've got a really good defense, they got real tight in the red zone, but they gave you a bunch of yards. I was like, okay, that makes some sense, and your offense is good enough that it was able to go toe to toe with that. However, on the other side of that, there were some things that don't make a lot of sense. So their offensive line, as far as pass protection is concerned, has not been good this year. Between 3 and 4 sacks per game. I think it's like 3.6 that they're averaging or something like that. You got one quarterback hit in the entire game. Now, you don't have the Denver Broncos pass rush, but it has usually been better than this. And I'm wondering how much of this could be. I mean, was this just Quinnen Williams going down? He went down super early, of course. But while he makes a difference, you were better at pass rush than this, at least, before you had him. So I'm not really sure what happened to your pass rush. And so that'd be something I'd be curious to know what you thought of. I mean, did Minnesota's offensive line just figure it out, or bad day, or what? Because on top of that kind of combines with this other idea that everyone that caught the ball for Minnesota had a catch over 10 yards.
Yes.
That is uncommon. Like, and it's not just like they only threw it to like 2 guys. It's 6 guys here that all had passes in double-digit yards. So I'm curious, what was this? The secondary was so bad that the pass rush didn't have any time to get after the quarterback? Or was this the pass rush was so bad that they were giving them all kinds of time to get long developing plays, combination of the two? What happened there?
Yeah, I was curious, and we talked about it last week. My concern and my curiosity was the Lions, when we played them, they utilized Dan Skipper, who's really an offensive lineman, as a tight end, notably even in a pass play, which was really entertaining to watch and replay. But he's a massive individual. He's clearly an offensive lineman out there blocking, and that's his job, is to just be the 6th offensive line, and they'll just run one fewer receiver. I was curious how much they would do that. And it looked to me in most of the game, not all of it though, notably, but a lot of the game, maybe after Quinnen was out, they did it less, but they had an extra offensive line, or their blocking tight end was in a lot, which is kind of why we only see receptions to 6 guys. And that bought a lot of time. I think that right now looks to be the answer to how do you handle all of these large, aggressive defensive tackles that Dallas has. That, to me, it seems to be the way that teams are learning to adjust to that. Before we picked up Quinnen Williams, our defense started doing some much more creative, blitzes. It's something I need to go and look up is, where do we rank in terms of our blitz aggressiveness? I would think we're one of the most reserved teams in the NFL, and we need to not be. For this is a great example of the reasons why. So I feel like that was the big difference, was having a 6 offensive lineman basically really makes a difference. One other notable thing that they were talking about during the game is the difference between Malik Davis, who had to come in because Javonte Williams got dinged up early in the game, and he had to go and block. And he honestly did an admirable job, but he's not a big back, and he's not a great blocker for that reason. Aaron Jones Sr. is a great blocker. Like, he is a great blocker back there as well. So I think things just worked really well on that side of the ball. I felt like the defensive strategy for going after McCarthy was not particularly complex, and thus it kind of got easy to counter. So that was my take on it. It is, at this point in time, I'm extraordinarily frustrated with our defensive coordinator and finding the answers to these teams that he's supposed to know. Like, the Vikings are the team he's supposed to know. He was in that division. He should know these guys. He should understand them. We should have an advantage against them. And I just feel like for whatever reason, he may not be the right thing there. I'm very, very frustrated with our inability to adjust game to game in our defensive strategy.
Yeah, and Chicago Bears fans will tell you that they didn't think it was anything special there at the end for sure. Yeah. I've heard it said, we've commented on this before, I think maybe off air, but it was like, I don't know if it's Eberflus or Eberflus, and I don't think it really matters if you know how to say it, because he's not going to be there much longer. So, yeah, you guys got to find a solution, and there'll be a lot to get into with the whole offseason, but we're not quite there yet. We've still got some regular season to get into. So, the other thing, the obvious thing that is a problem when your defense is doing what your defense is doing or not doing is it makes your offense have to play perfect. And so Brandon Aubrey, while he has a leg that could, kick from my house to your house, which is like however 150 miles or something, he will miss some more, some 40 to 45 yard kind of stuff. And I think he missed like a 51 yard kind of in this one. I forget all the distances, but needing him to be perfect. And that would have changed the landscape of the game if you made those two, because at the end of the game, you wouldn't have needed to do that crazy scurry looking for an onside kick and all that noise. So it could have changed things a lot. And so while we celebrate his greatness when his greatness happens, I do think it's fair to point out, it's like, man, you had kind of a rough game, and it definitely hurt us a little bit. So it is what it is with him. But I don't want Brandon Aubrey to go anywhere unless it's Arizona. But other than that, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and not to take away from Brandon Aubrey, I believe it's his first fake field goal that he was able to convert for a first down. So props to him on that. But and it would be unfair to like you're saying, it'd be unfair to say like, hey, this rests on his shoulders or any of that. Sure, the game would have been closer, but we can't be giving up 35 points a game. Like, we can't be. Like, our whole team is predicated now on needing to score 40 points a game to win. Like, that's impossible. So Brandon was a big part of that. But we were talking about earlier, like, we were 2 for 11 on third down. Like, we're supposed to be one of the best offensive league. And again, I think that the Minnesota defense is absolutely world class. I think they're amazing. I really, really enjoy that part of the team. But still, we've got to do better in what we're doing and what we're calling and how we're handling third down going forward. And one of the things that we were talking about earlier on the offensive side was some, injuries and all of that. Tyler Booker went out. No, Guyton. Sorry, I keep saying Booker for some reason. I just keep trying to injure the poor guy. We have so many Tylers. But Tyler Guyton got injured, had to leave. Nate Thomas came in, played. He got dinged up, had to leave. And Hakeem came in, and man, I felt like you pointed out earlier, like, he really did play an admirable game, holding in there. We gave up 2 sacks. Like, that's not bad, especially against this defense. But I think that's worth noting is that that side got really tested, and I do think from an offensive line, and I know this is a little bit painful every time I bring up the offensive line because of the coach, but it's a testament to him and the preparation of this offensive line. We've had guys go down, and the next man up, and they're ready, they're prepped, they're able and capable. So my hat's off to him and the guys who filled in there. So because it did keep us in the game.
Yeah, Kim Zinajah did play really well. I think it's not that PFF scores are everything, but for a guy like me who it's hard to tell, it's like, well, were his hands in the right place? What was his pad level like and all that stuff? I don't know all that stuff. So for me, getting something to kind of try to evaluate those things is helpful. He had like a 73. For a third stringer to get a 73, there's starters out there that don't get 70. So that's great. And again, it's a painful testament to, I believe, your offensive coordinator, but not just him. Jerry Jones and the management staff catch a lot of flack for taking too much control or being too involved and things like that. But man, they have an eye for offensive linemen, clearly, because you've had really good offensive lines often in the course of the last 15, 20 years, it seems like, and they're allowed to credit for that. So Credit where credit's due. It wasn't enough today, but we'll see moving forward. It's one of those parts of the Dallas Cowboys game that I am not really concerned about moving into next year. It's like, oh man, what if their offensive line is terrible? It's like, I mean, unless they're all hurt and they've got you and me out there playing tackles, and they'll be fine. So we'll get more into that later. So, but yeah, well, let's wrap this up then. So again, the Dallas Cowboys have a pretty slim odds of making the playoffs now. They've got to win out, and they need either the Packers or the Eagles to lose out. And neither of those are particularly likely, of course, because it's the NFL and it's kind of hard to lose out. But things happen. And of course, the Cowboys need to keep on winning. They've got a tough game again next week against the Chargers. We'll get into that game a bit more later on. So I hope you come and join us again, and leave us a like and a subscribe. We're trying to get to 200 subscribers. We talk about Dallas and Arizona usually, which is a weird combo, we'll admit. But yeah, come join us again. Let us know down in the comments what you thought of this game. If you just want to dunk on us for being Cowboys watchers or fans or what have you, or if you're a happy Vikings fan, just let us know. So, until then, hope you enjoy your holidays, stay warm, and have a fantastic day.